So I like to start every podcast with a couple of quick questions that help my audience get to know you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Moving right in.
All right, we're jumping in. So first thing is, how do you like to start your day? What's your morning ritual? What's your morning routine?
It's like one of my favorite things to talk about too. And it's always, it is really dynamic. So I will say I have not had a set routine kind of ever, but I've always had a routine. So currently, and this is a long-standing one, my favorite routine right now that's serving me, and also my favorite ritual right now that's serving me, is a brief kind of time in the morning by myself. Typically my husband meditates and I will go stretch. And typically when I'm doing that, I'm kind of I'm getting my mindset right. So I'm setting an intention for the day. And it's a really basic stretching routine. It's one sun salutation and a world's best stretch as a hip opener, and a set of push-ups and squats. So like really, really basic, nothing advanced. I used to do a lot more in the morning, and I really reduced that to like, hey, a 5-minute nice movement stretching pattern that helps me also set my intention for the day. So that's like first thing. And then in the morning, I have a really, really beautiful routine with breakfast and coffee. And we start with miso before coffee. My husband's normally making coffee. I'm normally starting breakfast. And we'll have a bowl of hot miso with some arugula. And that's a really nice way to kind of support our adrenals in the morning. And so that morning ritual really looks like spending time together with my husband before he goes to work, and setting my own intentions for work and the day ahead. And so those kind of two parts, first a personal one and then a together one, are really how I start my day right now.
I love that so much. So I haven't heard this miso thing before. I'm curious about this.
It's always an eye catcher when I talk about this.
I love that.
It's actually, we went on a trip maybe 3 years ago with two of our friends to Tahoe, and they are really intentionally plant-based. She's a breast cancer survivor. So our friends Jackie and Chris, they have been plant-based for years, and that's been a really beautiful way for them to elevate their health. And they do miso every morning. And so when we were up in Tahoe, it was kind of mid-winter. And so it was really nice to have this warm cup of miso. And they were doing it because digestionally it supports just kind of setting a nourishing start to your day before you maybe put caffeine or more acidic foods into your body. And it was like remineralizing and supporting the adrenals. And we kept it. So we came home and we like loved that routine and ritual, and still give them lots of credit for introducing it to us. But I've used it as a pre-coffee just to support my adrenals as we've gone through periods of higher stress. It's been a really nice way to have a little bit of something in my stomach before I really enjoy a cup of coffee.
I love that so much. It's so simple too. And I'm surprised I haven't heard that before. Like
I feel like I always end up explaining it a little bit
Yeah.
on the podcast. So yeah.
I feel like in all the adrenal talk everywhere, like, I've been deep in the health space for a long time. Like I'm surprised I've never heard someone say that. So I love that.
And today there's some really cool options. We do like a chickpea miso, or there's a couple brands out there that make, non-GMO, non-soy, or like soy alternative misos that are so good. It's a really good brand. We love Miso Master. And then I think it's called South River, that makes a chickpea. There's like a azuki bean one, some really cool like fermented goodness. So we totally love it. And we put a little arugula in there. Originally we made it like the classic miso you get in a Japanese restaurant, and it was obviously like not necessary. We put like diced up green onions in there, and then we realized like, do we need this? Probably not. But we love a little bit of greens in there, so arugula like melts up really nicely in the warm miso in the morning. And we just have like a automatic tea kettle, so it's really fast and easy, and you just do a little scoop of miso in a little bowl. And we'll do like a coffee mug when we're traveling otherwise, but like so simple, so easy, and really supportive of course, yes, adrenals for just nourishing and also replenishing sodium in a healthy way prior to coffee. And again, in our household, coffee is sacred. My husband roasts his own coffee. Like we absolutely love coffee, and ensuring that was really sustainable for us and supportive of our health is something that, really intentionally keep balanced.
That's so helpful, because I feel like everybody's looking for that. They're like, I want to keep my coffee in, and so how do I make this work? So I totally get it. Let me ask you, since your husband sounds like a connoisseur.
He is quite a connoisseur of food and the like.
Yeah, I love that. So do you drink your coffee black, or what's your coffee
Yes.
situation?
Just
Black.
just black. Yeah, because normally we're sourcing green beans. So prior to roasting, they're green beans from certain regions, and we really want to taste the tasting notes, just like a great glass of wine or a fine whiskey or something. Like we're actually trying to taste the nuances, and if you put something in it, it's really hard to taste. I will say I love like a coconut creamer or hydrating creamer with a coffee that isn't high quality. Then, and like if I'm not tasting anything except kind of like burnt coffee, I'll definitely put something in it. And that's what I'll use. Like maybe when we made a creamer last year, I loved using it for that when we were traveling and we weren't necessarily drinking like our favorite kind of coffee. Or when I go home to visit my parents, my dad likes a really dark roast and you can't taste anything. Like there's no flavor notes besides like one. And it's just kind of like a, overly roasted coffee is what it tastes like to me. So totally a preference, and I have no judgment on either side. So, it just depends on why you're drinking coffee and, what you're looking for. The same as wine, the same as,
I
whatnot.
totally get that. I feel the same. I also feel that way about chocolate. Like
I need how do you feel about chocolate?
I need 100% dark so I can taste the notes, right? If it's high quality, but if it's shitty, then I can get 70. Like give me some sweetener.
Exactly. And part of our, speaking of rituals, part of our evening ritual is like a little bit of dark chocolate. Normally we're looking for 85% or above cacao, and really looking for a great quality dark chocolate that even has maybe the region called out. The same thing we see in like, coffee, we're looking for the tasting notes in the chocolate. And it's totally, we always think it's like, kind of something we really enjoy, mainly because it just enriches the experience for us. And we know it's like super nerdy and into food, but we love that stuff. So we feel great about it. And also don't expect everyone to love that. It's like, hey, this is what we do. We have a little bit of chocolate every night with our gold, the Organifi gold for sleep, but that's our evening ritual. So anyways, we have, and I think, I always end up talking about my lifestyle with my husband and kind of our lifestyle together, mainly because we have those two really strong bookends, because we have really full, really busy days where even if he comes home during the day, because luckily he works close and he can come home, I don't see him because I'm working, back in our back office here. So it's really nice to have those strong kind of, bookmarks to bookends to the day together to get that kind of quality time. Otherwise, I mean, I can imagine it's so hard to connect. There's not a lot of time together if you're living with a significant other or a partner, without having those bookends to some degree shared. So for me, I find it really important.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love that morning and evening, those rituals are simple. And a lot of people, I think in their heads feel like it has to be this big ordeal or like a huge amount of time. And just like that little time of connection, I think is so important. So I love that.
And for two kind of key reasons too, today especially, but even when we first started a relationship, having those kind of boundaries for what we were both agreeing to as our working day, because we've always been entrepreneurs, we've also run our own businesses. That's been a really slippery slope. Where before I was in this relationship, even when we were dating, it was very hard to know when work stopped. And now, I mean, my gosh, 10 years later, so different today, so much harder today to know when work stops, because it's, kind of everywhere with you with your phone or tablets or whatever devices. So I think even more important to really leverage the architecting of your day. For anyone listening, like looking at what is it going to need to look like, or how could it support your the boundaries to your work and life, and making sure that ideally leveraging partners or friends for accountability or family for accountability to kind of transition out of work so that it doesn't just bleed into everything. And we have a lot of friends who have a hard time with that, and I think that's been such an important part of our morning and evening ritual, is it creates the container to actually have a lifestyle together that, and I think second to that, so leveraging the boundaries of your day by the morning and evening ritual to help. And then second is really looking at, I actually totally forgot what I was just going to say there.
Well, then maybe you didn't need to say it.
No, maybe I didn't. Maybe I nailed it. What?
You nailed it.
There was a second point. It'll come up. I totally forgot though. It's gone.
It'll come back if it's supposed to, because I want to dive more into that in later in the episode. But I mean, that's like why I asked that question. I am obsessed with learning about people's morning routines and their evening routines, because I'm a big believer that just completely changes your life. Like if you change the first like 10 minutes in the last 10 minutes of your day, your whole life can change. And so to me, it seems like such a simple question, but it's really pivotal. And I think, talking to so many very successful people and looking at, and when I say successful, I mean like grounded, I mean like loving life, right? Because there are lots of people I know who are financially successful who are running around in this really chaotic energy, right? Not getting enough sleep. And it's like, well, then what's the point? It's not ideal for me, right? And people who keep their sanity and like actually create balance, I find are very precise with their morning and evening routines in terms of just intentionality, so that's why I think that's so important.
And I think beautifully said. It's our ability to show up present in the life that we are creating that is truly, I think, a beautiful definition of success. Because regardless, and when I was a personal trainer, I saw this a lot. Or when I was working with people's health, I had many clients that were very successful on paper and had so much to that they wanted to improve based on their health and their ability to enjoy what they'd even built, and their lifestyle that they made possible, maybe financially or you name it. So I think so well spoken, and yeah, it's a great question. I did remember the second part, which was just making it dynamic. So part two was ensuring that you're consistently asking, like, hey, is this serving me? And not necessarily changing it all the time, but being open to changing it when you're clear that you need to simplify it, or for this season, whether it's literally the season of the year or this season in your life, it needs to be adjusted, and to ensure that it keeps serving you, to live most presently, be able to sleep well, all the basics. So yeah, so well spoken. That was the first question. I realized that we're still on. So that was my long
It's
answer.
Great. I love it. Well, this one will be fast. Next is, you already dropped some good ones. What's a product you're really loving right now? And I'll let you go wherever you want with that.
Because wait a minute, I had like 6 clarifying questions. So being the CEO of Organifi, I have some really key products that I love. So first, maybe before we get into those, I will say right now, I'm really enjoying some lion's mane. So I'm supplementing with lion's mane outside of our products, same source that we use in our products, a beautiful company, Namex, who we source our mushrooms from, incredible, like wild foraged mushrooms, beautiful. I'm loving taking a additionally high dose of that lion's mane in capsule form. And I'm really liking it for 2 reasons. One, sometimes I have a hard time sitting in this chair for very long when I'm working, the impossible task of finishing a list that never ends of things to do in my seat. And sometimes I like starting more than I like finishing. And actually, I'll say, instead of sometimes, all the time, I like starting instead of finishing. I'm more of a catalyzer than a finisher. So I love to skip between tasks. So this lion's mane's really helped me focus more and above than typical. So I love that. And then I also love it before I go play pickleball. So I love getting a little additional focusing, especially when I have so much on my mind, to become present to the game and really, I believe, watch the ball and increase my reaction speed.
So I love that. Did you want to name drop any top Organifi products?
Yeah. So my favorite Organifi products right now, my 2 products that I combine together are Green Juice and our Harmony. And I do that for more of like my women's cycle, like my hormone balancing. They both have incredibly powerful adaptogens. So together, I love them. I'll describe them separately, but I actually combine them in cold water together, which is very unconventional. So I'll talk about that as well. But that's my first Organifi product kind of combo, my product stack that I take in the morning. And I'll take the green juice for the cortisol, the stress reducing, stress balancing, adaptogenic, clinical dose of ashwagandha in there, like powerhouse, incredible product. And I take the Harmony for the Shatavari and the Maca balancing. So similar to balance my hormones as a woman. So very, very nice combination together is like delicious. And I'm not like a mint chocolate person, but I love this mint chocolate. So if you like mint chocolate, you're going to like go bananas over this. So
I've never tried that. I need to try it. You guys, I feel like y'all need to do some type of series on social where everybody in the company shares their like secret combo, because every time I'm serious, every time I talk to an employee, like Lisa, I got lunch with Lisa and she was saying, what was she saying? Like gold and green or something. I was like, what?
We all stack them in like totally different ways. If you'd asked me a month ago, I would have said Pure and Red, because I typically use that pre-workout. So that's my favorite. And Pure has the clinical dose of the coffee berry for actually reaction speed increasing and like really supportive of cognitive function. So that's a standard product that I love, and combine it with Red, and they're so good together. So Red for like endurance energy with the cordyceps, and also with the beets for circulation. So great pre-workout combo for that one. And the other one's just like my morning Harmony and green juice, like hands down.
I gotta try all the combos.
That's a really good idea about the social, so even like a reel where we just like, because all of us definitely combine them very differently and for very specific reasons, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. And I would never think to do that. I think I'm also like I'm like scared to like try.
So like that's the beauty of the products in general. And just like quick plug, them having adaptogens in them are one, like why they can work at any time during the day. We often promote normally like a habit cue. So in the morning, it's great to reset cortisol levels, support with circadian rhythm. It, starts first thing in the morning anyways. So you might as well do that upon waking. But there really isn't like a downside to taking, like ashwagandha is great at night too. So the green juice isn't going to hurt in the evening, different than, and I think always importantly, if we contrast adaptogens, which are basically like, dynamic superfoods that work with your body's natural hormonal rhythms. If we contrast that to stimulants, and stimulants just have an impact. Like if you take a caffeine pill, maybe coffee, but if you take a caffeine pill, or if you take an Excedrin, right, or something, a pharmaceutical, it has a direct impact regardless of the state your body's in. So it does not work with your body. It works on your body, or in some ways, and unfortunately against your body. And so that's why it's so cool to know that, one, you can definitely blend all the products. It's very hard to take too much of them because there isn't necessarily an issue there. Your body's going to be able to use that nutrient and adapt to it really, really well. So really like a much more flexible relationship with a supplement, as it's adaptogenic versus a stimulant, or, I guess like a suppressant or a stimulant, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and I will say, I was never a coffee drinker, and then I became a coffee drinker like a year and a half ago or so.
You're a new one, my God.
Because Megan Lindquist, but
credit to be honest.
Yeah, but then maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I quit again. Like I'm just like going off it for a bit to rebalance things, and Organifi products have like made it so easy. And I think that that's one of the things, like if anybody listening, if you don't want to add more caffeine, or if you don't want to use caffeine, like for me, it gives me that natural energy boost without any of the addiction stuff, and I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer, right? So I don't have to deal with all of that.
You can like take a nap after you have a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So I will just say that too. That's what I love about all the adaptogens in it.
There are a couple of things there, and I love that. It's I think when you were introduced in the proper way with Megan and Chase, such good quality and like good intentionality with caffeine. And I think it's the most widely used drug technically in modern day. So most people drink coffee, and it's a really interesting time to start looking at, and I think so much more relevant to and common today to look at. How is my interaction or relationship with caffeine? Is this supporting me, or am I more and more stressed and or out of balance because of this? So yeah, I think I know we've got some really exciting products in the works to help with this in particular, and even now with our current products, just nourishing your cells when you wake up in the morning, hydrating and nourishing with high quality, toxin free, organic, glyphosate residue free ingredients can really, really support a lot of those cravings for caffeine and a lot of the addictive nature with caffeine. So really cool that you've been able to balance that. I think when we originally launched green juice, a lot of people used it as a coffee, kind of to come off of that coffee routine. And the second part to this is really recognizing how important it is to, as you look at changing a habit, add something in. We always used to call them like upgrades when we worked with our customer base a lot. And with client groups and coaching groups, we would focus on, as you remove something, making sure that you're adding something in that's healthier and or the desired alternative. Otherwise, you end up with these spaces that you typically have a craving cue or a habit trigger that is much harder to make change in and much less enjoyable. So super smart to swap it out with something as you made that change and make it a lot more easy, a lot more enjoyable. So especially if listeners are thinking about changing habits, looking at how you focus on upgrading and like looking at the exact spot that you're making a change in to give your body something to at least look forward to or to add in with more intention potentially.
Yeah, I love that. I was just I was just saying that last night on a group call, like, because I believe the same thing with like beliefs, and we're talking about just reprogramming the brain, and I'm like, I was just like, the break right here is if you're saying I don't want to think that way anymore, or like I'm taking that belief out, and I'm like, you have to put the new program in. You can't just like clear the computer program and then not put in the one you want, because then a virus could get in and then you're just going to have the same issue, right? Like you need to like
very technical of you.
Yeah, right. Like you need to get the the new program, because it is so true. And I think I'm a big fan of crowding out, like just add in all the things you do desire, and then all of the extra stuff just kind of finds its way out.
There's no space for it. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's you're totally right. It's the same, physically or non-physically, right? So metaphysically, right? All of that is the same actual methodology for upgrading or improving. You need to have the positive or beneficial thing to focus on, whether that's adding in more greens on your plate so there's less room for stuff you don't like, as fundamental as nutrition, right? Hey, fill your plate with good things so the bad things don't have space. You can also think of your like mental space as a plate, and what are you adding in there to remove the space for the negative things. Such an interesting perspective too, as even looking at habit architecture around change psychology, and looking at if you're hoping to change the way you think or change your reality, you first need to focus on your thought patterns, your beliefs, the internal language, and to your point exactly, swapping it out and upgrading it and having something to instead focus on. Our minds are only as powerful as we're able to focus them.
100%. Do you know your human design?
I do. I'm a projector.
You're a projector. Do you know your profile?
I probably have it right here.
The numbers?
Like absolutely love it. Yeah. Let's see. Was really fascinated by that, and just fascinated by and I think like there's no right, kind of assessment, whether it's like Enneagram or kind of whatever tool you use to build more self-awareness. But it's, I think, such a beautiful filter to recognize where you have strengths, right? And where you have areas that either you want to work on and or like find better support around, right? And like, I think it's such a cool tool. So let me see if I've got it right here really easily, but otherwise I know I'm a projector, and I can give you what are you while I'm looking this up?
I'm a 2-4 generator.
Wow. Okay. We could have some fun conversations together. Human design. I don't know about my numbers. I'm a 3-6.
Oh, you're a 3-6. Okay, that makes so much sense. There we go. Yeah, the 3 is all about trial and error, experimentation, like the people like in both, and the 6 has the 3 in it. So when you're a 6 line, the first 30 years of your life are about being a 3. So like you're here to do the experimentation and try on all the things, and we learn from you, right? And then the 6 is the natural leader. It's the role model. So it's like 6s are just people who you can just tell they're wise, and you really reach your peak when you're 50. Like 50 and on. So you've integrated all the wisdom. So I feel that. Yeah, that makes sense. Love that for you. What about your astrology?
I'm a Taurus. So I am a sun in Aries though. So strong Aries. And then our household is very Taurus oriented. My husband's a double Taurus, and I am a Taurus Aries.
Are you a Taurus rising or a Taurus moon?
I'm a Taurus moon, Aries
Okay.
rising.
Oh, then what's your sun?
Oh no. Now I'm wondering. Um, no,
It's all right.
I'll have to come back to it.
We'll figure it out. You
Yeah.
you got two of them. I have those two as well in my big three.
I know. I'm like,
When's
one
your
is
birthday?
April 25th.
Oh, so you're a Taurus.
Yeah, I'm a Taurus.
You're a Taurus sun. You're a Taurus
Yes.
sun sign. Okay, I see.
There we go.
I'm an Aries sun sign and Taurus rising.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
We could have some fun there.
Yeah, I see that. I love that. I love that. Well, I'm curious, like this road to getting to Organifi, you're clearly very knowledgeable and interested in habits and personal development and bettering yourself. And so was that something that has always been innate within you, or where was that developed?
I mean, so speaking about human design, I feel like I am in intense learning, like just intense learning. And a lot of my core values are related to curiosity and growth. And growth, I relate to like learning, right? So building self-awareness or understanding, innately just interested in understanding how things work. And so much of that in my kind of related to Organifi, where I got here, was in personal training and coaching. So 10 years ago, that's where I met the founder originally, Drew Canole. I was personal training and really saw that so much of the obstacles to changing, wasn't actually related to the physical. It wasn't like how much time you spent in the gym. It wasn't even really the food you put in your body. It was a combination of those, with so much to do with your psychology, so much to do with your perception around what was possible. And so Drew was kind of one of the first people talking about this 10 years ago. So started to work with him in that way. Built some coaching programs with him really early on, did a lot of group coaching. And so much of that was driven to like basically equip people with the power of juicing. So when you give your body incredible nutrients, and when you start looking for the right progress perception, right? So when you start seeing change in the right way, rather than looking at the scale, rather than like the really conventional, very limiting kind of lens on change, you can really start to change kind of what you see possible and your belief. So much of it was around mindset that we were coaching. And that was essentially like 8 years ago. In a brand prior to Organifi. So kind of roundabout answering that question, I've held a lot of roles, kind of all of them since the beginning. I was suddenly employee number one, working with Drew, and we've built Organifi in recognizing there was probably an easier way to address the core obstacle of getting really high quality food in to your diet that tasted amazing. We were teaching like juice recipes, and most of the time people got them horribly wrong and they tasted awful. And then it was really hard to actually juice and clean up and do all this stuff. So our kind of launch of the brand was just solving that obstacle and saying, hey, we're actually going to like just make this really easy, and let's make the highest quality juice recipe we can. We happened to include adaptogens in it before we even knew that like this was a thing or going to be a thing, and the space was really empty at the time. But that was kind of how I started with Organifi and FitLife TV, the brand before. And since then, I've kind of learned the seats and held every kind of role in coming to the CEO seat 2 years ago now. So it's been quite a learning adventure, and speaking to like core values and human design, I think something that really is nourishing to my soul. I feel like there's so much still left to be figured out in the business and with the team dynamic. Love coaching up the team and recognizing like how we ultimately achieve the mission and connect with our community in a bigger way, partner with great human beings like yourself, and like expand the impact. But it all started from a lot of that idea around how do we help change people's beliefs around what they think is possible for their own health and vitality. And that's still, even this morning, I was chatting with Drew on the phone, and we were talking about the mission and kind of, hey, how are we communicating this, and how is it still alive, and has it adapted over time? So it's so timely that you mentioned that. But yeah, and before that, I was actually in the ag industry. So I was in kind of big ag. I was at farm level. I was very up close and personal with seeing where our food system was failing, essentially. Recognizing like the overuse of antibiotics in animal health. That's what I had studied at school. really into science, and my background's in research and development. And I was just like, was kind of shocked, I think, by the contrast. I grew up on an organic farm, 40 acres in Northern California. My parents both live there still.
What city?
Willits. It's like north of Santa Rosa. So like way up there.
Okay.
People
I
normally
grew up in NorCal. I know where Santa Rosa is.
Okay. Hour and a half north of Santa Rosa, which most people, it's a little gray up there, you know, it's way up in the woods. But both my parents are actually down here right now. So beautiful reminder. And just, it was such a contrast going out into big ag and seeing just really, you know, GMOs were not saving the world at that time. And the overuse of antibiotics was really creating a lot of issues in animal health. And it all came down to their diets. And why we were actually over medicating was because we were feeding dairy cows corn. And so a lot of my nutritional background was applied there in research and development around early detection of illness. So, you know, huge kind of story arc around trying to address what I thought was a problem with our food system and animal health, and really recognizing so much of that was actually driven by consumer demand and consumer perception around the quality of food that we put in our bodies. So I got to learn that on the animal science, farm level, and moved into human nutrition from there and started coaching, personal training, really supporting people, changing their perception around what they put in their bodies and how you can feel, you know, so much better when you prioritize putting great high quality things in your body instead of things you're not designed to eat or ingest well. And that's where I met Drew. So that was like 10 years ago. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that is wild. Although, you know, sometimes I see some of the old like pictures or ads from when you guys started. I'm like, yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was 25. It's crazy. You know, very, very like, it feels so long ago and so just yesterday, which is so weird. Yeah. But it's been an incredible learning journey, and just growing the team and building the business and the impact, which has been really fun. And I think, you know, speaking again to human design, it's definitely something where it's consistently learning and being curious to figure things out.
So I'm really curious on the business side of things. Like, I'm curious because the landscape has changed so much, right? Like in terms of like how people buy, what people buy, marketing, all the crazy stuff with all the different platforms, you know? And so I'm really curious, like, what was the approach when you guys first started? Like, what was working? And then I'm curious how that has had to shift and pivot into like what you're finding is working for you now.
I'll give you some contrast. So
yeah,
when we first launched, you know, you didn't pay to market on Facebook. So just like that's the biggest contrast.
Wait, really?
No, like
ads were free?
Yeah. So that was 2000, basically when we were FitLife TV, it was 2011. So we were growing a huge community, right? You could post anything you wanted, you know, and the format was so different then. So you know, we had a 1 million person Facebook community before you could pay to grow that. So like it was literally grown, which is so amazing and such a tribute to like the mission and really what Drew had started.
How did you grow that? Like how did you grow that?
All content. So, you know, originally there was like 500 videos on YouTube that Drew had been making. So much of our strategy was all around content. And, you know, back when YouTube was kind of young in that way, there wasn't a ton of people doing that. And all those videos were posted on Facebook to this community around juicing vegetables. And so it was just an interest-based community and so powerfully supported by great content. And Drew was just like basically sharing his experience and learning how to juice and change his health and vitality. So like the things and the call outs there were radical authenticity, complete like collapse of reality, right? So he was like just making videos and sharing on the same day. So it was almost like reality TV before that was a thing. And then a lot of that was digital products. So we were selling programs and like membership to learn how to do what Drew did. And it was such like a simple, authentic format, really focused on content. We had a membership. It was all around coaching. We did live calls every week. It was so cool. So just a lot of fun in that way. And today, and then to contrast, right? Everything you pay for, everything is paid for now. Very different mentality, makes it a lot harder to have, I think, a simple content structure up front, especially for new businesses today. I can't imagine what it would be like to have to like have the kind of faith that we could easily have 10 years ago to be like, oh, this content is good for people, so I'm going to keep sharing it. Because now you're like, this content's good for people, I'm going to pay a lot to share it, and I hope that people find it valuable.
Yeah.
So very, very different, I would say there. And then something that's the same, which is so cool and evolved, is how important partners were in our relationship. So in the very beginning, before FitLife TV, we would partner with companies. For instance, Squatty Potty, way back in the day, like we had a newsletter that we shared, and we would be sharing products that we loved. So we'd always be like, hey, this is a Squatty Potty. It first came out. Check out this thing, right? The thing in your bathroom now. Or it was like, I think it was when Kava first came out, there was like this 1 hour break company we loved, like just stuff that we'd share with our community that we were enjoying. Shoes, I think we did one for like New Balance or something. We were always sharing products. So we had like partner relationships and always just focused on lifestyle, right? Hey, this is a partner that's helping our lifestyles be this way. If you're interested, here's an introduction, right? So it was always like a really comfortable relationship. When we launched Organifi, we launched with affiliates. And so affiliates in the form of partners were I think so much to credit to our success in the very beginning. And since then have evolved to partners like you. So podcasters and just the ability to actually like speak about what the products mean and the impact they can have from your perspective to your audience is so valuable, and still kind of the way we launched originally with affiliates. So it's just evolved to this style of partnerships, which is so cool. So I think kind of giving you both perspectives, right? A lot's changed and a lot has really evolved and just, actually been the same.